The alarm did not sound like an alarm. It sounded like the ship was screaming, and for 3 full seconds, nobody moved. I was halfway through checking a coolant gauge when the pressure reading dropped so fast the number blurred. Behind me, 12 alien cadets stood frozen at their stations, eyes locked on the emergency display, mouths half open, waiting for someone to tell them what to do. I did not wait. My name is Daniel Ashford, and I have spent 6 years training cadets from 4 different worlds inside the Coalition's Joint Engineering Academy. Most days, my job is simple. I teach them how our systems work, how to read a stress fracture before it becomes a hull breach, how to keep a starship alive when the universe is trying its best to kill everyone inside it. But nothing I taught them prepared them for what happened that afternoon in Bay 7. The reactor coolant line had ruptured. Not a slow leak. Not a warning light that gives you 20 minutes to fix things calmly. A full rupture. The kind that turns a controlled system into a countdown. Steam poured from the pipe joint in a hissing white cloud, and somewhere behind that cloud, the temperature in the reactor core was climbing. A cadet named Vera, who came from a world where the weather has not changed in 10,000 years, grabbed the emergency manual from her belt console and started reading it aloud, word for word, like the pipe would wait politely for her to finish page 1. Another cadet, a tall young man named Oren, was already moving toward the door, following the evacuation protocol exactly as it had been drilled into him 100 times. Line up. Move in order. Do not touch equipment you are not certified to operate. Wait for command confirmation before taking action. It was the correct procedure. It was also going to get someone killed. I grabbed the nearest fire suppression blanket and a roll of thermal tape from the maintenance kit bolted to the wall, the same kit I had walked past 1,000 times without a second thought. I did not check a manual. I did not wait for confirmation from command. I ran straight toward the leaking pipe while steam scalded the air around it. Vera shouted after me that unauthorized repairs were forbidden without a Level 3 engineer's approval. I did not stop. The truth is, I was not thinking about approval. I was thinking about the temperature gauge climbing past the yellow line and heading for red, and I was thinking that if that reactor overloaded, the blast radius would take out half the training deck, cadets included. There was no time to file a request. There was only time to act. I wrapped the blanket around the ruptured section, pressing it down hard enough to feel the heat through the fabric burning against my palms. Then I wound the thermal tape around the blanket in 3 tight loops, sealing the leak enough to slow the pressure drop. It was not a fix, it was a bandage. But a bandage buys time, and time was the only thing standing between us and disaster. Oren, get the secondary valve, the manual one, 3rd console on your left, I shouted over the hiss of escaping steam. He hesitated. That valve requires authorization from the chief engineer before manual override. The chief engineer is on the other side of the station and cannot get here in time. Turn the valve, Oren, now. For a moment he stood frozen between 2 versions of himself, the cadet who had been trained to follow every rule exactly, and the person standing in front of a real emergency where the rules had already failed. Then something shifted in his face, and he ran to the valve and turned it with both hands. The pressure reading slowed its climb, not stopped, slowed. That was enough. A cadet named Priya, quieter than the others, had been watching everything without moving. I called her name and told her to grab the portable cooling unit from the wall rack and aim it directly at the sealed pipe joint. She did not ask if it was allowed. She simply ran, grabbed the unit, and pointed the cold stream exactly where I needed it. The temperature gauge stopped climbing. Then, slowly, painfully slowly, it began to fall. By the time the actual chief engineer arrived with a full repair crew, the danger had already passed. What she found was a scorched blanket wrapped in tape, holding a reactor line together through nothing but pressure and stubbornness, and 4 cadets standing around it, breathing hard, alive. The official review happened 2 days later. I sat in a small gray room, while 3 senior officers read through a list of regulations I had broken. Unauthorized repair without certification approval. Manual valve override without command clearance. Directing cadets to perform tasks outside their training level during an active emergency. On paper, it looked like a disaster of decisions. The officer leading the review, a stern woman named Elira Voss, looked up from her tablet and asked me directly why I had ignored every safety protocol in the manual. I told her the truth. The manual was written for problems we already understood. It was not written for a rupture that happens in the exact second nobody expects it, in the exact place where waiting means losing everyone in the room. Rules are built from disasters we have already survived. They do not always account for the one that is happening right now. She did not look convinced, but she also did not write me up for it, because 4 cadets and 1 very expensive reactor were still in one piece. What surprised me was what happened after the review, back in the training bay, when the cadets found me checking the repaired coolant line. Vera approached first. She had spent the entire crisis reading procedure instead of moving, and I could see it was eating at her. She asked me quietly how I knew what to do without checking the manual first. I told her I did not know, not really. I told her that on my homeworld, we grow up learning that emergencies do not wait for permission. Storms do not check a schedule before they hit a coastline. Fires do not pause while someone reads instructions. Where I come from, waiting for the perfect solution often means there is nothing left to solve. So instead, we learn to act with whatever is close enough, fast enough, good enough to buy the next 10 seconds of survival. Oren, still rubbing a faint burn on his hand from the valve, asked why humans were allowed to break rules that everyone else had to follow exactly. I told him it was not about being allowed, it was about understanding that a rule is a tool, not a cage. A rule exists to protect people, and the moment a rule stops protecting people and starts endangering them instead, it has already failed at its only job. On a world like mine, we learned that lesson early, because ignoring it usually meant someone did not come home. Priya asked the question that stuck with me the most. She asked how humans decide, in the middle of danger, which rules to break and which ones to keep. I told her it comes down to a single question. Does this action save a life right now, or does it only protect me from blame later? If the honest answer is that following the rule will cost someone their life while breaking it might save them, then the rule loses. Every time. That evening, something small but real happened. A cadet from an entirely different unit, someone who had only heard about the incident secondhand, came to the engineering bay and asked me to show her how to use thermal tape and a fire blanket the way I had during the emergency. She did not ask for a certification form. She simply asked me to teach her. Within a week, cadets who had never touched a maintenance kit without supervision started practicing improvised repairs during their free hours. Vera, of all people, began carrying a small emergency kit clipped to her belt, the same kind I always carried, filled with tape, a multi-tool, and a compact fire blanket folded tight enough to fit in one hand. When I asked her why, she said something I will not forget. She said that reading the manual had kept her safe her entire life, right up until the moment it did not, and she never wanted to freeze like that again. Command eventually updated the training curriculum. They did not remove the safety protocols, and they should not have, because most of the time, rules keep people alive exactly the way they are supposed to. But they added something new, a short section near the end of the manual, one most cadets use to skip entirely. It explained that in the rare moment when every protocol has already failed, hesitation becomes the most dangerous choice of all, and sometimes the only right answer is to act with whatever tools are within reach. I still teach at that academy. I still watch new cadets walk in, convinced that following every rule perfectly will keep them safe forever. Most of the time, they are right. But every so often, a system fails in a way nobody predicted, and in that moment, the cadets who freeze are not the ones who survive. The ones who survive are the ones who reach for the nearest tool, wrap tape around a problem that should not be fixable, and refuse to wait for permission to save a life. That is not recklessness. That is what happens when a species grows up on a world that never once made survival easy, and never will. And if you ever wonder why every human ship in the Coalition carries a roll of thermal tape listed as official safety equipment, now you know exactly why.